Chernin, and the pictures are by Jez Tuya. Nancy Chernin and Jez Tuya. Nancy, or Miss Chernin, is the author, and we're going to decide why she wrote this story. The William Hoy story. Now, this story is called a biography. Have you ever heard that word? Biography. A biography is a non-fiction story. It means it's about something real, and it's about a person. So a biography is a real story about a real person. So William Hoy is a real person. William scooped dust to dry the sweat off his slick rubber ball. He stared at the small X he'd chalked on the barn wall. He closed his eyes, he opened them, and threw. Bam! He hit the mark. He stepped back so he could try again. What do you think the setting of the story is? What is the setting of the story, Grant?
Like on a farm.
Maybe on a farm, because this looks like a barn, right? My pictures show me that this looks like a barn. Now remember, settings can change. So, we'll see how it changes. His mother waved her arms. She was applauding him. She touched her fingers to her mouth to signal eating. He read her lips as she said, dinner. I wonder why he has to read her lips. Why would a person have to read someone's lips? Why, Lily? Because they can't talk or hear. They're deaf. That's right. William pulled out his pad and pencil and he scribbled, just a few more? I want to be perfect for tryouts. His mother nodded. Someone asked me what nod means. Nod means this.
Yes.
His family was passing the mashed potatoes around the table when William pushed open the door. He read his father's lips telling him to wash up for dinner. He also read what his father's lips mouthed to his mother. Baseball, his father said, shaking his head. It will never last. Look at his face. Do you think he likes that he plays baseball? No, I don't think his dad does. So what's the setting here?
Inside.
What's the setting, Gracie?
Inside.
Inside what?
Inside their house.
Inside their house. What are they doing? What time of day is it? What time of day is it here, Sydney? It's during the day, but what are they doing?
Eating dinner.
Eating dinner, and it told me that in the words. So that means later in the day, right? Dinner we eat later in the day.
Like nightish and noonish.
Afternoon is lunch. Dinner is it's like a later in the day. Still, William couldn't wait to try out at his school, the Ohio State School for the Deaf. At tryouts, he threw the ball. He caught it. He batted. He waited. Too small, the team captain said. William never got much taller than 5'5". He couldn't do anything about that. But maybe they'd give him another chance if he aimed better and ran faster. So every day after homework and chores, he practiced. One day, William was standing outside the cobbler's shop where he fixed shoes, wistfully watching men play baseball in a far-off field. A foul ball crashed by his feet. With his strong, sure arm, he threw the ball straight into an amazed player's waiting hand. Hey, kid! The player called. Want to join us? But William couldn't read the player's lips from where he was, so he turned back to work. So he didn't understand what he was saying. Okay? I want you to look at the clues here. Do you think this is happening now or a long time ago?
A long time ago.
What are your clues that this happened a long time ago, Xavier? Their clothes, yes. Wyatt? The shoe cobbler? Yeah, we don't see many shoe cobblers around these days, do we? No. Gracie? It looks like it's an old place. Like this isn't even a sidewalk. It's just wood here. And there's not a paved road. It's a dirt road. So that gives us all those clues. The man ran to William and tapped his back to get his attention. William whirled around at this time, and this time when the man repeated the question, he understood. He scrambled happily to the outfield. William threw the ball smack into his teammate's hands. When he was up at bat, he sent it soaring where no one could catch it. Does that look like our baseballs we have right now?
No, those are black.
That's another clue this happened a long time ago. "What's your name?" asked one of the players. "William Hoy," William wrote. The man looked at the piece of paper a long time. He seemed to be thinking. "Do you want to try out for our team?" he asked William at last. William grinned. He sure did. William soon learned life in the hearing world wasn't easy. Unlike his parents, few people used sign language in the 1880s. So now my words tell me this is back in the 1880s. That was a long time ago. And certainly not in baseball. He won a spot on the first team he tried out for, but the manager smirked when he offered William less money than he paid the others. "I quit," William told him with his notebook. He quickly found another team, so he wouldn't pay him as much money as the other players. So that wasn't very fair. But even on his new team, some players talked behind his back, so he wouldn't know what they were saying. Others hid their mouths so he could not read their lips. Are they being very kind to him? No, they're not. One day, a pitcher played the meanest trick of all. William let 3 pitches go by because he thought they were balls. He was too far to read the umpire's lips and didn't know they were actually strikes. He stood, gripping his bat, waiting for the next pitch, but the next pitch never came. William was so confused. Suddenly, the pitcher burst out laughing. He pointed to the fans in the stands, laughing too. William's face grew hot. He walked off quickly. He wasn't going to cry. Not about baseball, he told himself. So they're playing tricks on him just because he can't hear. He jammed his hands in his pockets. Paper crunched against the fist. He pulled out a letter from his mother. He read again how much she missed him. William missed his family too. He remembered how his mom would raise her arms to applaud him. "That's it." William pulled out his pad and drew pictures. He scribbled words next to the pictures. He wrote. He ran to find the umpire. The umpire read William's notes. "Yes, that could work," he said. The next time William was at bat, the umpire raised his right hand for a strike and his left for a ball. He used American Sign Language symbols for safe and out. This time, William got on base. He stole bases. He scored. In his first year in the majors, he led the National League in stolen bases. So he stole the most bases that year in baseball. With his strong, sure arm, he became the first player to throw 3 base runners out at the plate in one game from the outfield. So what's the setting here? Well, not what is he doing? What's his setting? Remember, setting is where it takes place. Corbin, where's the setting? He's at the baseball field. So you see how the settings changed. William taught his teammates signs so they could discuss plays without the other team hearing. They loved it. The fans enjoyed learning signs too. In those days, before speakers and giant screens, hearing the umpire's calls from the back of the bleachers was hard to do. Now, even the farthest member of the crowd could see the signals. So they couldn't hear what's going on. Right now, we have microphones and stuff, but back then they didn't. So they could understand them making signs, but they couldn't understand if they were talking. So they liked it. Teams begged for William. He played for several before signing with the Cincinnati Reds near his family's farm. William was proud to show his parents that the boy who didn't make the school team was one of the most popular players in baseball. When William stepped up to the plate, shaking his bat over his shoulder, fans knew he'd hit or walk his way to first, then swiftly steal his way around the bases. Carefully watching the signals, he led the American League in walks in 1901. He was called the King of Center Field because for 10 years he was ranked among the top 5 outfielders to get hitters out by catching hard-to-reach fly balls. After William became a star, he thought nothing could surprise him. Then one day, when he ran out into the field, fans waved their arms from the stand just as his mother did when he was a boy. They waved their hats too. William said he'd never cry about baseball, but he did cry at the sight of the deaf applause. So this is how they wave, like this. So they're all doing that. All he'd wanted to do since he was a boy was to find a way to play his favorite game. He never dreamed he'd change how the game was played, but he did, and we still cheer him today. So there's some more about him. I'm not going to read that just now. But William Hoy. So let's think about the author's purpose of the story. Is the author trying to persuade us to do something? Get us to do something? Is the author trying to inform us, to teach us about something? Or is the author trying to entertain us, to give us joy, to have something for us to enjoy? What do you think, Wyatt?
I know another reason why I was back in the olden days.
Why?
Because they didn't have clothes.
They didn't have gloves, that's right. What do you think, Xavier? What's the author's purpose?
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything? Well, what are they trying to persuade us to do?
Play baseball.
Play baseball? Well, the author wasn't telling us to play baseball or to like it. So it's not persuade, but I do agree inform or entertain. Because persuade would mean the author would actually tell us in the words, you need to like baseball. This is why you need to like baseball. And that's not what they were doing. But they were informing us. They were teaching us the story of William Hoy and why in baseball they make all those signs. Have you ever seen the hind catcher making the signs?
Yeah.
That's where they got that from, was William Hoy. Okay? And then to entertain, it was an entertaining story. It was something we could enjoy. And there was drawings in there, so that's to entertain us. So I would definitely say to inform and entertain, but not to persuade. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to have you go back to reading in your books in your book bin here in a minute. But I want to give you guys each a sticky note. And on your sticky note, not in your books, make sure you're not writing in your books because you're going to have a pencil out. And I do not want you writing in your books. You are going to write the setting. So you're going to write what happens. And if there's multiple, you could write different settings. So there was in this one. It was on a farm for part of it. Okay. It was in town for part of it. And it was on the baseball field for part of it. Which one do you think is the most important to the story? The farm, the town, or the baseball field? Which do you think is the most important setting of this book? What do you think, Heather?
The baseball.
The baseball field. So maybe if you write many different settings